Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go through the Bmat 2014 Section 2. This exam has 27 questions and has a duration of 30 minutes. This is the scientific knowledge and applications part of the Bmat. Just a quick reminder, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Also leave a comment if you want further clarification on any explanations I give during the video. Now, without further ado, let's start answering the questions. Question number 1. The following statements relate to the flow of blood through the heart. Statement 1. Oxygenated blood flows through the right side of the heart. Statement 2. The vena cava empties deoxygenated blood into the ventricle. Statement number 3. The heart pumps oxygenated blood through the pulmonary artery. Statement number 4. There is a valve that prevents black flow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. Which of these statements is/are correct? So I'm going to run through each statement and see whether they're right or not. So statement number 1. Oxygenated blood flows through the right side of the heart. That is incorrect. Deoxygenated blood returning from the body flows through the right side of the heart before it travels to the lungs to be oxygenated. Therefore, oxygenated blood travels through the left side of the heart. So, put a cross there. Statement number 2. The vena cava empties deoxygenated blood back into the ventricle. That is incorrect. The vena cava empties deoxygenated blood in the atrium, in particular the right atrium. So give that a fat cross as well. Statement number 3. The heart pumps oxygenated blood through the pulmonary artery. That is incorrect. The heart pumps deoxygenated blood through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. And statement number 4. There is a valve that prevents black flow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. That is correct. The aortic valve prevents backflow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. Give that a tick. Therefore, option C is correct. That's question number 1 completed. Question number 2. Which of the following reactions are redox reactions? 1. C2SO4 plus Zn goes to Cu plus ZnSO4. 2. HCl plus NaOH goes to NaCl plus H2O. 3. Mg plus H2SO4 goes to MgSO4 plus H2. 4. Pb open bracket NO3 close bracket 2 plus Ki goes to PbI2 plus KNO3. So, in order to determine if a reaction is a redox reaction or not, oxidation and reduction needs to be occurring. And how do we determine that? We look at the oxidation state of each species and see whether the oxidation number increases or decreases depending. So, in reaction number 1, is it a redox reaction? Yes, it is. This is because there are changes in the oxidation state. The oxidation state of copper changes from 2 plus to 0, and this is reduction. The zinc changes from an oxidation state of 0 to 2 plus, and that is oxidation. So therefore, give that a tick. Reaction number 2, that is not a redox reaction. This is because there's no change in oxidation state. There's no exchange of electrons. There's no electron transfer. Reaction number 3 is a redox reaction. This is because the oxidation state of magnesium changes from 0 to 2 plus, so that's oxidation. and the hydrogen changes from 1 plus to 0, and that's reduction. And from this point you already know that the answer is B, but I'll still go through 4. 4 is not a redox reaction because there are no changes in oxidation states in any of the species. So that is question number 2 completed. Question number 3. Below are 4 statements about the electromagnetic radiation. Statement 1. Microwaves have a shorter wavelength than all other electromagnetic waves. 2. For identical amplitudes, waves with the largest wavelength transfer the most energy. 3. The speed of electromagnetic waves is inversely proportional to their frequency. 4. Ultraviolet radiation can cause cataracts. Which of these statements is/are correct? So let's get right down to it. Statement number 1. Microwaves have a shorter wavelength than all other electromagnetic waves. That is incorrect. Microwaves actually has quite a big wavelength, and in relation to other waves in the electromagnetic spectrum, for example, it has a greater wavelength than gamma rays. Looking at statement number 2 now. For identical amplitudes, waves with the largest wavelength transfer the most energy. This is incorrect. Waves with the shortest wavelength transfer the most energy. And that's something that you need to know from GCSE physics. That's incorrect. Statement number 3. The speed of electromagnetic waves is inversely proportional to their frequency. That is incorrect. It's actually proportional to their frequency. And how do I know this? This is because the speed of light is equal to the frequency times by the wavelength. And using this equation, we could therefore tell that the speed of an electromagnetic wave is directly proportional to their frequency. Statement number 4. Ultraviolet light can cause cataracts. That is true because they have waves of a higher frequency than visible light and therefore carry lots of energy, way more energy than visible light. This additional energy can damage the corneas of the eye, causing cataracts. Statement number 4 is correct. Therefore, the answer is D, and that's question number 3 completed. Question number 4. Simplify x squared minus 4x over x squared minus 16. This is a simple simplification of this expression, using your knowledge of quadratics. So we can remove x from the numerator. So x minus 4 over, this is difference of two squares, x plus 4, x minus 4. And do we have any common factors on the numerator and denominator? Yes, we do. X minus 4, we cancel them out. We're left with x over x plus 4. And the correct answer is B. And that is question number 4 completed. Question number 5. Before a cell can divide by mitosis, DNA synthesis has to take place. Following DNA synthesis, the DNA is separated into each half of the cell and then the cell divides. The graph below shows the DNA content per cell over a period of time. Which of the letters on the graph represents the sequence of the 3 events described above? So, let's assume that the DNA content of a cell is equal to 1. Once all the DNA has been synthesized, it's going to be equal to 2. And when the cell divides by mitosis, the DNA content of the cell goes back down to 1, as mitosis causes the DNA to be the exact same in each cell. So, let's look at column number 1. The cell divides, therefore we're going from DNA contents of 2 down to 1. Therefore, K is going to be our letter for column 1. So we could eliminate A, eliminate B, we could eliminate E, we can eliminate F, we can eliminate G, we can eliminate H. Now let's look at column number 2, DNA synthesis. DNA synthesis is a long process and it's a gradual one where the original cell has one DNA and it grows to 2 DNA. So therefore, the second column is going to be M. So we can eliminate C. And what do you know? The answer is D. But even still, let's look at the third column. DNA separates. At M, we've got enough DNA for the cell to separate. So the answer is going to be N for column 3. The answer is D for this question. That's question number 5 completed. Question number 6. Which row in the table correctly explains why an increase in temperature increases the rate of reaction? So let's look at column number 1. Effect on activation energy of a reaction. If the temperature increases, this has no effect on the activation energy. So therefore we could eliminate A, we can eliminate B, D, E, G, and that's it. Now, let's look at the second column, the effect on collision frequency between particles. They will increase because the particles have more energy. That means they're able to zoom around more. So we could eliminate F. And now onto the final column, effect on proportion of collisions which are successful. The effect would be that the proportion of collisions which are successful increases. Therefore, we eliminate C. This is because the particles have more energy. Therefore, the probability that they collide enough with enough energy that they could overcome the activation energy is greater. Therefore, the answer is H. And that's question number 6 completed. Question number 7. Which one of the following is a unit of current? And they've given us A to F worth of options. This is where you use your knowledge of physics equations to rearrange different equations to see if you could get the right answer. The equation that I'm going to be using here equals P equals IV. And we're going to make I the subject as we're looking for current. I equals P over V. And what do you know? Watts, which is a unit for power, divided by volt, which is a unit for voltage, is equal to the current, which unit is amps. Therefore, the answer is F. That is question number 7 completed. Question number 8. Given that 4P times 8Q is equal to 2N, express N in terms of P and Q. So, 2N is equal to 4P times by 8Q. This question assesses your understanding of indices. So now I'm going to rewrite the right hand side of the equation. I'm going to write it as 2P times 3Q is equal to 2N, which is also equal to 2P plus 3Q. Now we can cancel these out. N is equal to 2P plus 3Q. And therefore the answer is B. That's question number 8 completed. Insulin is a protein involved in the regulation of human blood glucose levels. Genetic engineering can be used to allow the large-scale production of human insulin. Which statement describes the process of genetic engineering in this case? So, instead of going through each of these options, I'm going to talk through the process of mass producing insulin. So first you cut out the gene from a particular chromosome within the human. We cut out the gene that codes for insulin. We then insert this gene into a plasmid, which is a genetic store for bacteria. We then electric shock that bacteria to bring it back to life almost, defibrillate it almost, and then we cause it to replicate. And as it replicates and as the bacteria lives, it will be producing the insulin hormone. Well, insulin isn't really a hormone, a protein that can be harvested and given to humans. So using that information, we could determine that the right answer is D. And that is question number 9 completed. Question number 10. Methanol can be oxidized by hydrogen peroxide to produce carbon dioxide and water. The equation is given below. What is the value of B when this equation is balanced? So step number 1 is to work out what A is. In order to work out what A is, we need to understand what balancing an equation is. In order to balance an equation, there needs to be an equal number of each element's atoms on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. So for example, if there's 5 carbons on the right-hand side, there has to be 5 carbons on the left-hand side. So armed with this knowledge, let's work out what A is. We know that there is 1 carbon on the right-hand side, for sure. Therefore, there can only be 1 carbon on the left-hand side. So therefore, A is equal to 1. Now, we can work out what B is. Water is H2O and is made up of hydrogen. On the left-hand side, there is 10 hydrogens. And therefore, on the right-hand side, there has to be 10 hydrogens. And since hydrogen on the right-hand side exists as H2O, in order to get 10 hydrogens on the right-hand side, we have to multiply everything by 5. So therefore, B is equal to 5. And the answer is C for this question. And that's question number 10 completed. Question number 11. 2 rods, X and Y, are made from different electrically insulating materials. A student rubs rod X, which is initially uncharged, with a cloth and then holds it near rod Y. The 2 rods repel each other. Which statement explains why repulsion occurs in this experiment? So, the first thing that you need to realize is that only electrons can be transferred between each object. So, we could eliminate C, we could eliminate D, we could eliminate G, we could eliminate H. Now, when electrons are gained, an object becomes negatively charged. Also, if an object loses electrons, it becomes positively charged. For repulsion to occur, the 2 objects must have the same charge. So, either rod X gained electrons from the cloth and rod Y was negatively charged, or rod X lost electrons to the cloth and rod Y was positively charged. What do you think makes more sense? To me, the second of that explanation makes sense. So therefore, option F is the right answer. And that is question number 11 completed. Question number 12. In a town, the bearing of the library from the station is X degrees. The theatre is due east of the library. The theatre and the station is equidistant from the library. What is the bearing in degrees of the station from the theatre? Instead of my usual way of working in these videos, I decided to write the explanation out first write the working out first and then explain why I did the things that I did instead of working as I explain. So, now, recall your rules of parallel lines. We know that SLT is equal to 90 plus x, and as you see over here, this right angle, 90 degrees, x is there. Now we could start to form an isosceles triangle from SLT, and we know that it's isosceles because the distance between the station to the library and the library to the theatre is the same, and since it is an isosceles triangle, we know that LST is equal to LTS. So, we know one of the angles in this isosceles triangle. Therefore, we could work out the other angles of this isosceles triangle, since two of the angles in an isosceles triangle is equal. So, LTS plus LST is equal to 180 minus 90 minus x, which is equal to 90 minus x. We could then assume that LST by itself is equal to 90 minus x over 2. Now we can work out the bearing from S to T. And let me zoom out a bit just for your convenience so you can see the diagram. So, 360 minus 90 minus 45 plus 0.5x is equal to 225 plus 0.5x. And that is the answer to the question. We worked out the bearing from the library to the station. Well, I mean the theatre to the station. And therefore, the answer to this question is F. And that is question number 12 completed. Question number 13. In humans, the water content in the blood is regulated via the hormonal system. Which of the following occur when the water content of the blood is too low? And they've given 6 statements for us to determine whether they're true or false. So let's begin. So statement number 1. Pituitary gland releases less ADH. This is incorrect. ADH increases the amount of water reabsorbed in the kidneys. Therefore, when the water content is too low, the ADH production will increase. So more water is absorbed in the kidneys. So let's give that a fat cross. Statement number 2. The pituitary gland releases more ADH. We know that's true based off my explanation that I literally just gave for statement 1. Statement number 3. Increase in water reabsorption in the kidney. That is correct. As I explained in statement number 1, when water content is low, we want to absorb and retain as much water as possible, as water is a very important metabolic solvent. And what do we know? The answer to this question is B, but I'll still keep on going through the question and the statements. Statement number 4, we know is wrong, based off the information I just gave. Statement number 5, increased reabsorption of glucose in the kidneys. That is incorrect. ADH doesn't affect glucose reabsorption, and the same reasoning could be applied for statement 6. So therefore the answer for 13 is B, and that's question number 13 completed. Question number 14. Which of the following statements about Bmat are true? And they've given us 5 statements to determine whether they're true or false. Statement number 1, it can form a polymer. Alkenes are generally used as monomers for polymers. Bmat is an alkene and therefore can be used to form a polymer. Statement number 2, it contains carbon single bonds only. That is incorrect. It contains a carbon carbon double bond. Statement number 3, it conforms to the general formula CnH2n. That is true. That's for all alkenes. Statement number 4, it decolorizes bromine water. Yes, it does, because there's a carbon-carbon double bond. And statement number 5, it is saturated. No, it is not, because it contains a carbon-carbon double bond. And from that, we could determine that the correct answer to this question is C. And that's question number 14 completed. Question number 15. A container is filled with water at 20 degrees Celsius and placed in a room that is also 20 degrees Celsius. The container can be fitted with an internal electric cooling unit in one of the 3 label positions P, Q, or R. The outside of the container can either be painted dull black or covered in shiny aluminium foil. In order to cool all the water as quickly as possible to 5 degrees, in which position should the cooling unit be fitted, and should the outside of the container be painted dull black or shiny? So, I'm first going to look at the outside of the container. This is a relatively easy question if you know the information. The outside of the container should be designed to reduce the heating of water from infrared radiation from the surroundings. A shining surface will reduce this effect better than a dull black surface. So therefore we want shiny. So let's get rid of A, let's get rid of C, let's get rid of E. Now let's look at the position of the cooling unit. Cooler water is more dense than hotter water, so the water that is cooled will fall to the bottom of the container. And let me just show you the container. This movement will create a convection current in the container. In order to ensure that all the water is cooled and maintaining that convection current, the cooler water should be positioned at the top. This ensures that the less dense warm water that rises to the top is cooled. Therefore, the position should be P, and let's eliminate accordingly. So we can get rid of option D, option F. Therefore, the answer to this question is B, and that's question number 15 completed. Question number 16. 3 classes in a school all took the same test. Class 1 achieved a mean of 61, Class 2 achieved a mean score of 63, Class 3 achieved a mean score of 70. The mean score of the students in all 3 classes combined was 65. Class 1 contains twice as many students as Class 2. Which one of the following statements about the number of students in Class 3 is true? In order to explain this question, I've written out my working out beforehand. This is so I save time for you, and it's a bit more easier to understand. So, to my explanation. If we call the number of students in Class 2 M, the number of students in Class 1 must be 2M. This is because there are twice as many students in Class 1 as in Class 2. As the average score in Class 1 was 61, the total of all the scores in Class 1 was 61 times by 2M, which is equal to 122M. As the average score in Class 2 was 63, the total of all the scores in Class 2 was 63M. If we say there are Y students in Class 3, then the total score of all the students in Class 3 is 70Y. As the overall average score was 65, the total score of all the students in all the classes is 65, open bracket, 3M plus Y, close bracket, is equal to 195 M plus 65Y. This total score is equal to the sum of the total scores from each class. So, 195M plus 65Y is equal to 122m plus 63m plus 70y. We can simplify that down to 10m plus 5y, which is equal to, well, simplified down, it's equal to 2n plus y. So, the number of students in class 3 was the same as the number of students in class 1 and twice the number of students in class 2. Therefore, D is the correct answer to this question. That's question number 16 completed. Question number 17. Which of the following statements about lipid digestion in the small intestine is / are correct? And they've given us 3 statements. Statement number 1. Emulsion by bile makes smaller lipid droplets, each with the smallest surface area. That is true. Statement number 2. Bile contains an alkali to reduce the pH of the material from the stomach. That is incorrect. The bile is an alkali. However, that would increase the pH of the acidic contents of the lipids coming out from the stomach, making it neutral. Statement number 3. Lipase secreted in bile breaks bonds in lipase to produce glycerol and fatty acids. That is incorrect because lipase is produced by the pancreas. Therefore, the correct answer is B. That's question number 17 completed. Question number 18. An organic compound is found to contain 6 parts carbon, 1 part hydrogen, and 8 parts oxygen by mass. 6 grams of gaseous sample of the compound would have a volume of 2.4 decimeter cubed at room temperature and pressure. Which formula A to E is the molecular formula for this compound? And they've given us the molecular weight of hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and they've also told us that 1 mole of gas is equal to 24 decimeter cubed. So step number 1 will be to work out the empirical formula of this compound. We are informed that this compound has a ratio of 6 parts carbon, 1 part hydrogen, and 8 parts oxygen. To calculate the empirical formula, you get each of these numbers and divide it by their atomic weights. So carbon is 6 over 12, hydrogen is 1 over 1, oxygen is 8 over 16. You make a ratio out of this and you simplify. So the ratio, or the empirical formula, is going to be for every 1 carbon, you have 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. So that's step number 1 completed. Step number 2 is working out the MR of this compound. We know what the mass is of this compound. We could work out the number of moles that this compound is based off the information given in the question, and we'll be able to work out the MR. So to work out the moles, we get 2.4 and divided by 24, which is equal to 0.1. Therefore, the compound is 0.1 moles. Now we could use the formula MR is equal to mass over moles to work out the MR. So we substitute the mass, which is 6, and the moles, which is 0.1, and the MR is equal to 60. Step number 3, and the final step, is combining all this information together. We know that the MR is equal to 60. We know that for every carbon, there is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So you create a formula, not a formula, an expression based off this information. (60), which is the molecular weight, is equal to X, open brackets, 30, close brackets. And the reason why I did this is because from the empirical formula, the number of times that has to be multiplied to get the MR, that is how many carbons there's going to be in this compound. So Rearranging this formula, so x is the subject, 60 divided by 30 is 2. Therefore, for every 2 carbons, there's going to be 4 hydrogens, 2 oxygens. Therefore, the answer to this question is B. That's question number 18 completed. Question number 19. The displacement time graph shown represents a wave of wavelength 1.5 centimeters. What is the speed of the wave? So we know that the period of this wave is 2 seconds, so therefore the frequency is going to be 1 over 2. And then we can multiply the frequency by the wavelength to get our answer, which is equal to 0.75. And therefore the answer to this question is C. And that is question number 19 completed. 20. The diagram shows part of a glass structure. PQRS is a horizontal square with sides of 1 meter and point X is 4 meters vertically above P. What is the cosine of the angle that XR makes with the horizontal? So, firstly, I'm going to break this 3D object down into two 2D shapes. I'm going to make this square P, Q, R, S. I'll put a line here between P and R. And I'm going to draw another diagram of X, P, R. The question wants us to work out what this angle is, and we need to know what this and this is. And in order to work out what P, R is, we need to use P, Q, R, S. So let's start with that. So we know that each of these sides are equal to 1. And we want to work out what this diagonal is. So we use Pythagoras' theorem. So square root of 1 squared plus 1 squared is equal to root 2, which is equal to PR. So PR is equal to root 2. Let's fill that in over here. Root 2. We also know that px is equal to 4. We need to work out what this hypotenuse is because the question is asking us for the cosine of the angle XR. So we use Pythagoras' theorem again. 4 squared plus root 2 squared is equal to 18. Square root of 18 is equal to 3 root 2. So therefore XR is equal to 3 root 2. So, using this information, we could use SOHCAHTOA to work out the answer for this question. We are going to use the kappa of SOHCAHTOA, which states that cosine is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So let's do exactly that. The adjacent over here is root 2, and the opposite, and the hypotenuse is 3 root 2. So root 2 over 3 root 2 is equal to 1/3. And therefore the answer to this question is A. And that is question number 20 completed. Question number 21. In order to function, the cells of the brain need large amounts of energy. Any reduction in the function of these cells have serious consequences for the body. For example, a loss of oxygen supply to the brain can cause unconsciousness within 5 to 10 seconds. Which of the following statements are true? And they've given 4 statements. Statement number 1, neurons in the brain are able to rely on anaerobic respiration for long periods of time. That is false, based off the information that they literally told us in the question. Statement number 2, the homeostatic systems of the body will constantly have to work to resist temperature increase in the brain. That is true. A byproduct of respiration is the release of heat, and in order to maintain a healthy functioning of the cells, the body has to work to resist temperature increases in the brain. Statement number 3, an overdose of insulin in the body could produce a serious loss of brain function, such as inducing a coma. That is true. Insulin lowers blood glucose levels, therefore too much insulin can cause blood glucose levels to drop down. This means that less aerobic respiration is occurring, and it can cause unconsciousness within 5 to 10 seconds due to a lack of energy being produced. Statement number 4, during a normal functioning of neurons in the brain, high levels of CO2 could be produced. That is true, because a product of aerobic respiration is carbon dioxide. And therefore, the answer to this question is G. That is question number 21 completed. Question number 22. Graphene is a new material composed of carbon atoms arranged in tightly bound hexagons just one atom thick. The diagram shows a simplified structure of graphene. Considering its structure, which of the properties below could be predicted about graphene? Statement 1, high melting point. Statement 2, good electrical conductivity. Statement 3, soluble in water. So let's start with statement number 1. Has a high melting point. This is true because, as you can see from the diagram, it is a giant covalent structure, and therefore it will have a high melting point. Now let's move on to statement number 2. Good electrical conductivity. That is true. This is because for every one carbon atom, it has 3 bonds. Therefore, 3 electrons are being donated to other carbon atoms. However, there are 4 carbon atoms on the outer shell of carbon, and therefore we have 1 electron spare, and that electron is delocalized. That electron can carry and conduct electricity across the structure, and therefore 2 is correct. 3, soluble in water. That's wrong. Giant covalent structures are not soluble in water. So therefore, the answer to this question is D, and that is question number 22 completed. Question number 23. When a particular nucleus of uranium-235 undergoes a process of nuclear fission, it absorbs a neutron and then splits into a nucleus of barium and a nucleus of krypton, as well as releasing further neutrons. Which one of the rows in the table gives the correct number of neutrons released and the isotopes of barium and krypton produced by this nuclear reaction? So, this question is actually more of a maths question than a physics question, because all you need to do is add up all the rows and see whether that adds up to 236, not 235, because the uranium atom nucleus absorbs a neutron and then the splitting occurs. So option A, 2 plus 141 plus 92 goes to 235. Nope. B, 2 plus 142 plus 94 goes to 238. Also, no. C, 3 plus 140 plus 92 equals 235. No. D, 3 plus 140 plus 94 goes to 237. That's also no. E, 3 plus 141 plus 92 goes to 236. That is correct. That is what we want. And therefore, E is the right answer. And for the sake of completing the question, I'll go through F as well. 3 plus 142 plus 94 goes to 239. Therefore, the answer to this question is E, and that's question number 23 completed. Question number 24. A test is developed to detect a certain medical condition. This test is not perfect and sometimes gives incorrect results. The behavior of the test on 1,000 randomly selected members of the population is shown in this tree diagram, where the following notation is used. And there's the notation, and there's the diagram. 3 of the branches proportions are shown in the tree diagram. 1 over 100 of 1,000 people have the condition. 4/5 of those with the condition have tested positive. 1/10 of those without the condition tested positive for the condition. A person is selected at random from these 1,000 people and tests positive for the condition. What's the probability that this person has the condition? So, if 1 in 100 people have the condition, then in 1,000 people, 10 people will have the condition. Of these 10 people with the condition, 4/5 will test positive for it. Therefore, 8 out of 10 people with the condition will test positively for the condition. Of 990 people without the condition, 10% will test positive for the condition. Therefore, 99 people without the condition will test positive for it. Thus, in total, there will be 8 plus 99, so 107 people testing positive for this condition. So, the probability that a person has the condition, given that they've tested positive for this condition, is 8 over 107. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is E. And that is question number 24 completed. Question number 25. A woman has a recessive genetic disorder, but neither of her parents have the condition. Which one of the following could not be true? And they've given 5 statements, A to E, that we need to evaluate. So, statement number 1, both her parents are heterozygous for this gene. That can be true, so we need to eliminate that. This is because them both being heterozygous can mean that she could have the gene. Statement B, one maternal grandparent and one paternal grandparent have the condition. That's also a very big possibility. Both parents would have had to have inherited the recessive gene from somewhere, mainly being their parents' parents. Therefore, in theory, her mother could have received it from her mother, who was maybe heterozygous for the gene, and her father could have received the gene from his mother, who is heterozygous for the condition. And option C, one maternal grandparent and one paternal grandparent are heterozygous for this gene. Same logic applies again, really, so no. D, all her grandparents were carriers for this recessive allele. Totally possible. E, both her parents are homozygous and a mutation occurred in the DNA gamete for one of her parents. Not possible. That is the answer to the question. And the reason why this can't be true is because the woman needed to receive 2 copies of the recessive allele to have this condition, and neither one of her parents have this condition. And therefore, a single mutation in one of the parents wouldn't have been able to have given her this condition, because she had to get one gene from one parent, the recessive gene, and one recessive gene from the other parent. So the answer is E, and that's question number 25 completed. Question number 26. Which of the following atoms' ions contain exactly 18 electrons? They've given us 5. And essentially, this is a question that assesses our understanding of atom, ions, and atomic number. The atomic number provides us the information in regards to the number of electrons an atom has. If it's an ion, if it's a positive ion, we lose an electron. So therefore we have to deduct 1 from the atomic number to get the number of electrons that ion has. If the ion is negatively charged, such as 1 minus, the number of electrons increases by 1. You add 1 to the atomic number to calculate the number of electrons for that negatively charged ion. So with that knowledge, let's go through each of these. So number 1 has 8 electrons, number 2 has 16, number 3 has 17, number 4 has 18, number 5 has 18, and therefore 4 and 5 are correct. And the answer to this question is E. That is question number 26 completed. Question number 27. The graph shows the variation with time of the height through which a crane lifts a mass of 20 kg. Assume the gravitational field strength is 10 newtons per kg and the effects of air resistance and friction are negligible. What is the power output of the crane when the mass is at a height of 10 meters? So to calculate the power output, so number of watts, power, we are going to not only need one equation, we're going to need 2. So the first equation is power is equal to joules over time, as power is the number of the amount of energy per second. But also we're going to need the equation energy, which is joules, is equal to mass times gravitational field strength times by height. And we can substitute the second equation into the top equation. P is equal to mgh over time. And for consistency's sake, I will leave it as that. So now, what do we do? From the graph, we can see that the change in height with time is constant from 15 seconds to 35 seconds. Reading from the graph, we can see that the change in height of 10 centimeters from 5 to 15 meters takes 20 seconds. Therefore, the formula for power output of the crane lifting a mass of 20 kg over 10 meters is 20 times by 10 times by 10 over 20 is equal to 100. Therefore, the answer is 100 watts. And let's find 100 watts in our answers. Therefore, the answer to this question is D. And that is question number 27 completed. Thank you very much for listening and watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you found this useful and want more content like this. Also, leave a comment if you want further clarification on any of the explanations, or if you have any suggestions for any videos that I can make in the future. Thank you very much for listening, and hope to see you next time on another one of my videos.